Everybody hears me?
Yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome all to our weekly webinar. I don't remember how many weeks it has been going on, but this week we are a little bit turning the wheel from our first topic to another one. It's gonna be inshallah about the hereafter, resurrection. We are picking a topic from the commentary Risale-i Nur, by Said Nursi, and we are following up the method called Muzakara, that we read the topic together and try to share our understanding, and at the end we'll try to get questions if any time left. We have brother Colin Turner from Durham, England again, and this week brother Fatih Atalay from New Jersey, United States, and myself. The topic will be around again in the creation. We will focus on the creation, since we are talking about our creator. So this is a very interesting topic because it is the most mentioned topic after Tawheed, I believe, in the Quran. This both goes hand in hand. Amantu billah wa bil yawmil akhirah, belief in the hereafter, resurrection. And a question comes to mind: we are believers. Why it is repeated several times again and again in the Quran? Very interestingly, I believe we need it more than anything else because we call it Quran Hakim. One of the names of the Quran is All-Wise Quran, and it doesn't offer anything which is really strange to us or not familiar to our understanding. So interestingly, in every page of the Quran, either it's talking about the closing of this world, or the life in the grave, or the life after the grave, or the judgment day, or paradise or hell. So it's all around the Quran, and we as believers, this is one of the amentu, that's the pillars of belief, that we memorize it and we try to remember it all the time. But again, apparently we need this more than anything else because it is repeated again and again, and it's nothing strange to me, because even in the Quran we have this story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and as a prophet and Ulul Azm, one of the biggest prophets, he is asking some evidence to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah asks him, don't you believe, oh Ibrahim, to the resurrection, to the afterlife? And he says, yes, I do, but I need some confidence, I need some strength in my belief. So he is given some miracle or evidence about the afterlife and example. In this regard, this is not, again, this is very much repeated in everywhere in the masajid, in regular halakas. We mention about the afterlife so many times, but to me it is more about the consequences of the afterlife. So what are we going to face in the judgment day? What are we going to see in the life of grave? What are we going to see in the Jannah or Jahannam? So it is more consequences either in this life or the next, or if we don't believe in the hereafter, what kind of stress or this consequences or negative effects we may have in this life or the next one. We most of the time talk on this, but what about the evidence part? Are we really, into it? Are we really have a strong faith in the afterlife? Because uh, we don't often see the traces in our lives. Most of the time, when we are planning, when we are doing our daily work, we plan ahead and we do, we follow the regulations. We do a lot of things step by step so we can achieve the goal. But while doing this, what about our long-term plan about the afterlife, or it is influence on our daily decisions? Most of the time, we don't see it in our lives, or uh, if we compare to a believer to an unbeliever who believes in an eternal life, or somebody who says, I don't believe in it, we don't see much difference. So apparently, uh, we should come with some, evidence and proof in our own realm to have more confidence in this regard. So again, Said Nursi follows, to my understanding, a Quranic method, which is all around the Quran. Uh, for example, at the end of the Surah Yasin, people come at that time and ask to the Prophet, Man yuhil izama, who will give life to this decayed bones? So it looks very weird or away to some people. Even we sometimes hear from the believers, or is there anybody who went there and came back and telling us about this? We didn't see it yet. So now we are in this life. We make our days. We do our plans accordingly, and it looks a little far. Yes, we know we are gonna die, but how is it gonna be? We are not sure about it. So again, Said Nursi come with some evidences from the creation itself. And inshallah, we'll go through one topic this week. It is this week, inshallah. Again, this is the 10th word on resurrection and the hereafter by Said Nursi, and we picked the second truth, which is the gate of generosity. Let me start reading here. Is it at all possible that the Lord of this world, who in his works demonstrates infinite generosity, infinite mercy, infinite splendor, and infinite glory, should not give reward in a manner befitting his generosity and mercy, and punish in a manner befitting his splendor and glory? This is the opening sentence. It's gonna be our also the uh, aim in this topic. So can we see these around us? We are defined in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines himself as merciful, as generous. So how do we see it around us? If one looks at the disposition of affairs in this world, one sees that all animate beings, from the weakest to the most powerful, are given some fitting form of sustenance. All licit nourishment is obtained not through the exercise of strength, but through the existence of need. The decisive proof of this is that powerless infants enjoy the finest of livelihoods, while strong wild beasts suffer from all kinds of deficiency, and that fish, for all their lack of intelligence, wax fat, while the cunning fox and monkey remain thin in their quest for livelihood. There is therefore an inverse relationship between sustenance on the one hand and strength and willpower on the other. The more one relies on strength and willpower, the more difficult it will be to sustain one's livelihood. Indeed, the weakest and most powerless are given the best form of sustenance. This largesse and bounty is distributed with such lofty generosity that a hand of infinite generosity is manifest at work. For example, in the spring all the trees are garbed in clothes as fine as silk, just like the houris in paradise. They are encrusted with flowers and fruits, as if with jewels, and caused to offer us numerous varieties of the choicest fruits, on branches delicately outstretched like the hands of a servant. Similarly, we are given wholesome and sweet honey to eat, and from the hand of the bee with its sting, we are clothed in the finest and softest of clothes by means of an insect that has no hands. And within a small seed a great treasure of mercy is preserved for us. It is self-evident that all of this is the effect of a most beauteous generosity and most delicate sense of mercy. I want to turn to my speakers if anybody wants to step in. Brother Colin, anything that you have about the general topic that we started this week, or we can just step in to the topic. So we start with the mercy and generosity in the creation.
Salam alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think, yes, it's quite clear to everyone who has eyes that there is a principle of generosity and mercy at work in the creation, because we see that all beings receive sustenance in a way that fits in with their nature, with their disposition, in a way that aligns with their physical and their physiological constitution, you know, what they require as human beings, from various sources, from sources that are various and often unexpected in nature. And I think Ustad Nursi mentions things like honey, which we get from an animal that is ostensibly dangerous and potentially even lethal. Or milk, for example, which, you know, in mammals, the milk that is given to the young comes from a source which shares its location in the body with various different bodily fluids and secretions. This happens in a way that shows us there's harmony there. There's mutual cooperation between the sustenance and the one being sustained, in a way that only those substances that can be used are used. I think what I'm trying to say at the beginning of this talk is that there is a perfect match between the sustenance and the one being sustained. And this match suggests that the giving of sustenance is purposeful, it's carefully measured and planned, and that intentionality and choice are involved. In other words, there's nothing random about how the sustenance is brought to the one sustained, or indeed how that sustenance is integrated by the body of the one that's being sustained. So already in the simple act of sustenance, reaching the one sustained and satisfying the requirements of the one sustained, this suggests to us a whole network of perfections, a whole network of attributes and names that are working together to bring this act about, this act of sustaining. And the attributes that come to mind immediately are knowledge, wisdom, generosity and mercy, of course, which are the subject of this talk, and compassion, justice, harmony, equilibrium, and so on. So the relationship between sustenance, the one who's being sustained, and the one who does the sustaining is a kind of relationship, I can see anyway, in which the existence of sustenance is proven by the existence of the need for sustenance. So if there is a need for sustenance, there should exist sustenance in order to fulfill that need. And there should also exist one who will sustain. So by the same token, the existence of sustenance demands the existence of a creator and a sustainer who will deliver that sustenance to the one who needs it. And then as for the third pillar of that relationship, the existence of a sustainer in turn explains the existence of one who will need that sustenance. So as well as exhibiting lots of different divine names, this act of sustaining also serves to prove the existence of a sustainer, and the existence of the sustainer proves the existence of sustenance, and the existence of sustenance demands that there should be one who is gratified by it. So lots of things are starting to emerge already.
Thank you.
Just to add to Brother Colin's point, with the bounties that we receive, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only shows that He wants to sustain us, but He shows that we are like valued guests. For example, governments feed the prisoners, and then they give like state dinners when foreign dignitaries come. Like they serve the prisoners their food in a way, and they serve the foreign dignitaries in a different way to show that they are valued guests. And by making all the sustenance that we receive very tasty, and they are coming through like trees and with the flowers and stuff. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that we are His valuable guests in this universe. So, of course, He's not gonna ignore any of our actions.
Well said. Let me continue a little bit to the same issue. Similarly, we are given wholesome and sweet honey to eat from the hand of the bee with its sting. We are clothed in the finest and softest of clothes by means of an insect that has no hands, and within a small seed a great treasure of mercy is preserved for us. It is self-evident that all of this is the effect of a most beauteous generosity and most delicate sense of mercy. Then too, the fact that, with the exception of men and certain wild animals, all things from the sun, the moon, and the earth, the smallest of creatures, perform their functions within the utmost exactitude, do not overstep their bounds by an inch, and observe an universal obedience and in a spirit of great awe. This shows that they act by the command of a possessor of great glory and dignity. It is also apparent that the fashion in which all mothers in the vegetable and animal and human realms succor their weak and powerless infants, with the delicate nurture of milk in tender compassion, in a manifestation of God's all-embracing mercy. So again, we continue to observe the creation around ourselves. This is a method applied in the Quran widely, all around the Quran, and also Risale-i Nur as a tafsir, going through this steps, extensively. So, like, I'm trying to make sense. So, where am I trying to get from here? So, I'm trying to make sense out of this life, and we are talking about the end of life. So, what's the aim of this life? What's the end fruit of this life? And most of the time, I would say I'm coming with my judgments, and Said Nursi here tries to help us, I guess, to have a sound judgment. And what's the way of having a sound judgment? I need to go observe the fact out there. So I read this in the Quran, but if I can see the same truth in the creation, I can, come to the conclusion that, okay, now I have confidence in what I read or in what I believe. So most of the time, of course, in depending our daily mood, we say, "Oh, I'm going through a hellish state. This is like a hell. This life, I can't take it anymore. This is too much for me." Or, if I'm so happy, I'm like in paradise. And comparing to this, even we can go to the extent that we try to make judgment on Allah's decisions. So how come this happens to me? Is just if the God is just, if God is merciful, if God is all loving, and then I make a conclusion depending on this. So starting from the very first point, as far as I understand, to make a sound judgment, literacy tries to come with some facts out there. This is the fact that we observe in our daily life. If we can really analyze this fact as it is, not with a distorted mind or with a negative mood, but if we really try to see the reality, the mercy, the generosity is really dominant out there. It is there. It is undeniable. No matter from which culture you are coming from, no matter what religion you believe in, no matter what your ideology is, these are the facts out there, and it is largely observable. For example, I make little comparisons most of the time in my life. We have this pets at home, or maybe we have kids we are trying to take care of, or a little aquarium or something like that. So if we just make some reflection on that, 2 3 pets or 2 3 kids, to take care of them, we can ignore, or we can just forget about many things that we are supposed to do. But out there, we have millions of species and countless, not countable numbers of members of those species, and all of them are taken care of in the best way. None of them are forgotten. So this is very interesting. Sometimes when I look out there, it's really overwhelming. Sometimes you just see a predator catching its food, the other one teasing the other one. So I come with different judgments, but if I try to look at the bigger picture, I guess this is very observable in the universe. This is the bigger picture that we can easily, see out there. Brother Colin, do you want to step in at this point? Any reflections?
Only to say that what Ustad Nursi is working towards in this piece is he's going to talk about the existence of a realm in which the full extent of divine generosity can be displayed and thus realized. We know that in this realm, wherever we look, there is generosity and mercy, but that is there for a reason. This world, as we know, is the world of finitude and limitation. We are in a transient, passing realm where all of these attributes of the Creator cannot be made manifest as they really are. As the author says with respect to mercy, he says, in this transitory world and brief life, only a millionth part of all this, like one drop from the ocean, establishes and manifests itself. Now, I've heard some scholars and thinkers explain in terms of crude percentages. I heard recently, actually, one scholar say that only 1% of divine mercy has been expended on this world. And I've heard others say things like, God has never really looked on this world with anything approaching true mercy. I think what they're saying then is not that there is no mercy in this world, but that the world is not enough to show the full extent of divine generosity, divine mercy, divine compassion. In other words, while this world, we can indeed see it as a reflection of the divine names, it's best for us to think of it as a place where we see only a very pale reflection of a very weak manifestation of perhaps a shadow of the divine names. So what does that actually mean for our context with this piece that we're reading? I think it means that sustenance is endless, without limit, it's unconfined, it's absolute, and that this requires a realm that really fits in with this idea of unlimitedness. So the absoluteness or the infinity of the divine names requires a place of manifestation which fits in with that absoluteness, which fits in with that infinity. You know, this world is full of, as we can see, generosity and mercy, but in fact, it's a place where only a very, very small amount or a small percentage of divine perfections can be established. So there must be a realm of blessedness, this boundless realm of paradise, where the giving of sustenance and where the bestowal of bounty can actually take on an eternal and boundless form. So I think, in short, the argument is this: since it's clear that sustenance requires a sustainer, infinite sustenance requires a sustainer who will give the bounty of sustenance in a manner that befits the absolute nature of that bounty. So just as we see divine compassion and generosity in this world, we know that the sustainer is absolute, and therefore we know, or we believe, that there must be a realm where that absolute compassion, that absolute generosity will be manifested fully and completely. And I think this is the whole point of this treatise on Akhira that Ustad wrote, is to show us how the manifestations of the divine names in this world point to the existence of a world after this, a hereafter.
Can you reflect on a little bit absolute nature of sustenance? Because I guess this is the key point here in this part. Since it comes in such a way that covering everybody, every species, regardless of any differentiation, it's coming in such a absolute way that it gives us a confidence. It kind of let us see the whole picture. That yes, we see some defects here and there, but if you look at the larger picture, this is what it tells us. It's not the little deficiencies here and there, but the absolute picture is kind of talking about the absolute nature of this generosity and mercy.
Well, I don't think that we see absolute generosity in this world. I think what we see is that there is a generosity, and this generosity belongs to one who must have absolute generosity. But the fact that, for example, pleasure ends when pain begins and happiness ends where sadness begins, the very fact that, this world is a mixture of these different things. It's a mixture of dark and light. It's a mixture of good and evil. It's a mixture of hot and cold. All of these binaries show us that the absolute, while it exists, does not exist in this realm. Because human desire is not just for sustenance or justice. It's not just that we desire life. We desire eternal life. We desire sustenance that never ends. We desire to be satisfied in a way where we will never be hungry again or never be thirsty again. We are desirous of a state in which we will be happy and never sad again. So, although the giver of these perfections is absolute, the giving itself doesn't come across as absolute. It comes across as being interspersed and intercut by non-existences, by instances of non-existence, which is necessary because we live in a finite and limited world. So light comes with dark, good comes with bad, and so on. We desire the absolute, and the absolute cannot be expressed in a finite world. And I think that the whole of the 10th word is about this. The very proof that there is another world is the fact that the absolute needs to manifest itself absolutely. And it can't do that in a limited world. So to say that we desire these attributes is not enough, because we desire them permanently. We desire endless perfection eternally. And that is hardwired in us. It's written in our spiritual DNA. So it's not just that we want sustenance, we want infinite sustenance, actually. And we've been created for it.
So is it both-sided? So we as human beings desire for that, and the way it's coming shows us that it should be that way. It's kind of answering our question in our spirit, the desire that we have for eternity. Or maybe we can talk a little bit more. The following part is talking a little bit about this.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Brother Fatih, you want to add anything at this point?
When Nursi is talking about this treatise, the 10th word, in one of his letters to his students, he mentions that every part of this treatise shows us and proves three things: existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his names and attributes, and then how those attributes show us there will be hereafter. And like the other risales, when I read here, I also understand more and remember why we say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah means I bear witness. I mean, when we become Muslim or when we declare that we are Muslims, we don't say I believe in Allah, or we don't say I know Allah, or we don't say I know about Allah. We say I bear witness. And we cannot see Allah, so how we can bear witness to something that we cannot see? And here, the explanations here shows us the meaning of how we can bear witness to something that we cannot see. And if we understand these explanations well, when we say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, when we say I bear witness, we not only say it, we also mean it.
So it's not just we read and learn in the Quran, oh, okay, these are the names of the God that we believe in, but yes, he is as he defines himself. We can obviously see that outside there. Right? Thank you. I'll continue a little bit while reading, if you are okay at this point. The fact that a hungry lion will prefer its offspring to itself and give to it a piece of meat it would otherwise have eaten, that the cowardly rabbit will attack a lion in order to protect its young, that the fig tree contents itself with mud while giving pure milk to its offspring, the fruit. This shows to anyone not blind that they act in accordance with the commands of a being infinitely merciful, generous, and solicitous. Again, the fact that even unconscious plants and beasts, animals, function in the wisest and most conscious of passions demonstrates, proves irrefutably clearly that one utterly knowing and all wise has set them to work and that they are acting in his name. So I guess Brother Colin covered this part a little bit. If you have any other reflections on this part?
Sorry, was that addressed to me?
Yes, you talk about this little bit. I don't know. Do you have anything to add? So we see this mercy, this compassion in the most unconscious beings. So it definitely shows us that they are uh, working in the name of an all-knowing, all-wise, all-compassionate one.
These things, I think, we know that they're there to show us things, right? They're there to teach us things. They're all signs. We've said that the existence of a need for something proves more or less beyond doubt that the thing which will fulfill that need should also exist. An example is the existence of thirst. The existence of thirst demands the existence of something that will quench that thirst, or the existence of the need for air suggests the existence of oxygen, and so on. So supply and demand, if you will, are inextricably linked. The existence of your gastrointestinal tract, for example, suggests, and most forcefully, the existence of things that will be ingested and digested and propelled along that tract before it's expelled. Supply suggests demand, but what about the need for eternity? We've said that need in this world indicates the existence of someone who can satisfy that need, and also something that can satisfy it. But what about the need for eternity? Does our desire for eternity prove the existence of eternity? Or is this desire not just wishful thinking? How can our desire for eternity prove the existence of eternity? Or how at least can it suggest that eternity exists? This is my question. I've got my own answer, but I'm not sure whether it is a convincing answer. I just wanted to ask that question.
Hmm.
What do people think about that?
So, Brother Fatih, do you want to come with any explanation, or we can continue and keep the question in mind? Maybe towards the end, we can have a
we
little
can
more extensive answer.
we can continue reading. I mean,
Okay.
and I'd love to hear Brother Colin's explanation too.
Since the master of this world has then such an infinite generosity, mercy, splendor, and glory, it follows that his infinite glory and splendor require the chastisement of the discourteous, that his infinite generosity requires infinite bounty, and his infinite mercy requires the bestowal of favor worthy of itself. Now, in this transitory world and brief life, only a millionth part of all this, like one drop from the ocean, establishes and manifests itself. There must therefore be a realm of blessedness appropriate to that generosity and worthy of that mercy. One would otherwise have to deny the existence of the mercy that is visible to us. And this would be like denying the existence of the sun, that fills every day with its light. For irrevocable death will transform compassion into disaster, love into affliction, blessing into vengeance, intellect into a tool of misery, and pleasure into pain, so that the very essence of God's mercy will vanish. I guess this part is a kind of shedding some light into, onto our question. But Brother Colin, do you want to step in and want to reflect on your question?
Yeah, I mean, I can wonder out loud and see whether someone can convince me that what I'm thinking is the case or not. I'm thinking of how does our desire for eternity prove the existence of eternity? Because we know that in this world, we can prove the existence of one who sustains us by the fact that we need sustenance. If I'm hungry, then there must be something to gratify that hunger. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been created with hunger. But how does that translate into desire for eternity? And I was thinking, if you consider the child in the womb, a child before it's born in its mother's tummy, there are certain things that the child in the womb has, certain organs, for example, that are no good to it while it's in the womb. For example, its mouth. In the womb, a child cannot use its mouth. It doesn't use its mouth to chew food because it takes in food through its umbilical cord. It has eyes that can't be used for seeing. And even if the eyes worked, the child wouldn't be able to see anything anyway, given how dark it is. And it has a pair of lungs that can't be used for breathing. So the child in the womb has certain things which suggest or point to the existence of a realm in which those things can be used. And we know that that is the realm outside the womb. Now, I've tried to draw an analogy between that and our life because we, in our lives in this world, have a need for eternity. We have a need for everlastingness that cannot be satisfied while we are still in a world that is limited, finite, and transient. That need, the need for eternity, for infinite sustenance, if you wish, is like the mouth or the eyes or the lungs of the child in the womb. It's something that can't be used until the setting is appropriate and until the circumstances are suitable. So just as the womb isn't the suitable place for a pair of lungs to work, this world is not the suitable place for a desire for eternity to be fulfilled. In fact, it's impossible for that desire to be fulfilled in this world, just as it's impossible for a pair of lungs on a child to breathe while still in the womb. Nevertheless, the existence of those lungs while still in the womb clearly points to the existence of a realm in which those lungs will be able to work, namely the world outside the womb, where there's an atmosphere. And I think that similarly, the existence of our desire for eternity, while in this world, points clearly to the existence of a realm in which eternity can actually be experienced, namely the hereafter. Now, that applies to all of the divine names, not just generosity or mercy or compassion, but also justice. You know, we desire justice absolutely, and this suggests that there will be a realm where justice is manifested absolutely. So this was how I understand how we prove through our desire for eternity the actual existence of a realm where eternity will be given to us. And I'm wondering whether that is also just wishful thinking or, you know, whether I'm trying to force fit the idea or not. I don't know what people think.
Brother Fatih, do you have any reflection?
Yeah, I mean, as mentioned here and other parts of this Risala and also other parts of Nursi's works, since Allah answered all of our desires, this is a proof that He's going to answer the most important desire of human beings, that to last forever. Of course, He's going to answer that desire.
But do we not need proof of that? More sort of empirical proof? Obviously, we can't have rational proof because we're talking about a non-rational issue. But do you think that, for example, the child in the womb scenario can help us understand?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's
of course.
it's an analogous situation, really.
Yeah, of course. No, that was very, very nice. I mean, analogy. I loved it. Thank you for sharing.
But does it work? I wasn't sure whether it worked or not.
I want to focus on maybe this specific examples here. So starting from the material, the world that we experience. For example, you talked about the baby in the womb, and then I can, for example, come with the example of our tongue. It's a piece of flesh. This, my tip of my finger, is a piece of flesh too, but this has such an ability that it has the ability to taste anything in the world, from tropical fruits to the fruits in to the vegetables in the north, any single taste, it has a kind of, it's a kind of index to the all varieties of nourishment, sustenance, food, risk out there. So human being, as you said, kind of materially is an index of the whole world, the observable world, but it's not only the material side. Maybe in the spiritual side, it's even more strong. It's stronger than the material one. Maybe it tells stronger than the material side, the spiritual side I'm talking about. The desire of eternity is also included in this, because with my material, for example, my tongue, I can just taste limited varieties of food. I can reach them also. It might not be, or the baby, for example, even after coming to the material world, it might have limited usage of all those devices, even though much greater than what he is using in the mother's womb, definitely. But in its spiritual sense, my feelings, my desires, those are really kind of absolutes in one sense, even in this world. For example, this compassion of a mother for a baby. Maybe this is the most beautiful feeling that a mother can experience in this world, right? The attachment of a mother to her baby. But think about a mother who has no belief for the afterlife and waiting at the bedside of her baby. Can we imagine how it turns just the opposite? And where does that love comes from? Why that love is so strong? And then why that love is just, dispersed if as soon as we think about an end. It's kind of an a worldly feeling. Yes, we experience and observe it in this world, but it extends to such a degree that I can say it's an absolute love. For example, even in a hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put an end to the love of a believer. He says, I wouldn't contented in the universe, but I was contented in the heart of a believer, right? So it's very interesting that the point that Brother Colin did, but in the spiritual sense, I guess we can experience it in even a larger sense. For example, we are talking about mercy and generosity, right? So we can experience it in a limited sense. Let's say somebody designed a banquet. He called, invited homeless people around the district. It's a really delicious feast. But as soon as they get a taste of it, a piece to it, he just, kicked them out of the room. Now, that feeling of generosity, that feeling of mercy, where it comes from first, we appreciate that kind of kindness, we appreciate that kind of favor. We acknowledge the host, the owner, and then as soon as it ends, we don't just say, oh, okay, at least we tasted. We say, he didn't let us to get satisfied even. So in the realm of feeling, I guess this, extending it for the continuation, the desire for continuation is kind of even more stronger than the feeling itself. So whoever gave us that feeling, that acknowledgement, that devices that we can, experience that spiritual thing, he also wants us to really understand the continuation, I guess. So that's my understanding of Brother Colin's question. Brother Colin, do you have any reflection on this?
No, I think that fits in with what was being said before. Yes.
Mhm.
I'm still not sure about absoluteness in this world, but I get your point. There is a kind of lack of limitation on spiritual desire. I mean, spiritual desire is endless, maybe. So maybe there is an absolute desire in us spiritually for these things that cannot be fulfilled while in this world. So maybe that in that sense you are right. Our desires are absolute, or our desires are for the absolute. But the very fact that we are not fulfilled in this world shows that there must be a realm in which they are fulfilled, because Allah is merciful, and we see that he does answer our needs in this world, so he will answer also our spiritual need, which is for eternal life.
And merciful and wise, maybe we can add that too, because as in
Yes,
your example with the baby in the tummy, I mean, all those organs are for some realm which he or she will need and use. So since Allah has that wisdom, of course, our desire for eternity, there will be a realm to satisfy that need.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have few minutes to go, and so we have a few slides left, but I don't want to go reading into that. So to conclude, what's our conclusion from this today's reading? Does anybody want to step in? So I believe at the end of these observations that we made in the creation, it's coming in such a way that in order to deny the continuation, in order to deny the afterlife, oh, this is the end of the story, nothing is coming next, that was it. In order to say it, I need to deny the existence of this world. So I need to say that no, there's no mercy out there. There's no merciful one out there. And then I can come and continue, conclude that, okay, there will be no other reflections of this mercy. Or I should deny the generosity out there. Or there's no generosity. I don't see anything like that. And then I can come and conclude that, okay, then there will be no continuation of this generosity. But otherwise, if it is, coming in this way, this strong, absolutely, it gives it to the human understanding. We talk about the continuation and the, the making sense of that mercy and generosity. We can conclude that it will be continuous. There will be a realm that this will be fulfilled and continue to reflect, manifest in that sense. That was my understanding. Brother Colin, you wanna add anything?
No, I would just endorse that absolutely, completely. I can't
Brother
really
Fatih?
better that. It's a perfect way of summing up the whole piece.
Brother Fatih?
Yeah, I have nothing to add. Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Thank
a
you
good
so much
summary.
for your contributions, for your joining us this week, and the listeners. We appreciate that we are able to go on this wonderful webinar, that we benefit a lot from our readings. And inshallah, we will try to continue next week. We want to
Inshallah.
see you all again. Pray for us during this week, and inshallah, we'll see you again. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim.